Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the week number 6 tight end start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from the early Sunday morning game in England all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the notable tight ends in every single matchup. But before we get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 6 tight end start or sit decisions. We begin in England with the early morning game, the Miami Dolphins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the starting quarterback of the Dolphins this week, barring any setbacks. They're already flying into London. I think they're already there at this point. It seems like Tua is going to be good to go. Now, what does that mean for Mr. Mike Licky-Amagasicki, tight end of the Miami Dolphins? To me, it is a little bit worrisome, because the last couple of weeks, Gesicki has just been fucking peppered with targets by Jacoby Brissett. But now switching to Tua Tagovailoa, is that target share going to fly directly down to earth? Maybe, because in week number 1, when Tua was the starter up against the Patriots, Gesicki was basically irrelevant in that game. He was not a main target at all for Tua Tagovailoa. Now, in this matchup, I do expect Mike Gesicki to be used, but with Tua under center, I wouldn't be as confident in Gesicki this week, but he's still going to be a starting tight end for me. Same thing goes with Dan Arnold. Dan Arnold, get to the chopper, tight end of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is such a bad fucking impression of the Terminator, but it is pretty funny though, in my opinion, regardless. So Dan Arnold, I do like Dan Arnold in this game. Now again, we're kind of at the bottom of the barrel in my opinion with Gesicki as well as with Dan Arnold. Going up against the Dolphins defense though, if the Dolphins defense does end up just getting their shit ran through by these Jacksonville Jaguars, then I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Arnold had a really solid game, and he does look like he is going to be seeing a decent amount of usage there in Jacksonville, so I like him going up against the Dolphins this week. Now we move to the normal Sunday slate at 1 o'clock, headlined by the Chiefs at the Washington Football Team. In this one, obviously, we're going to be playing Travis Kelce. You play Travis Kelce every single week. That is basically a no-brainer. There's not too much in-depth analysis you want to be doing here when it comes to Travis Kelce every single week, because you already know to start him. He's going up against the Washington Football Team. Both of these teams have some of the worst defenses in the National Football League up against the pass, so I expect this to be a very pass-heavy, back-and-forth affair. Both these teams throwing the ball a lot, and that will lead to Travis Kelce too. But in a majority of the games where they're throwing the ball a million times, he's going to have a very solid game. For the Washington Football Team, we will be firing up Mr. Ricky Seals-Jones without Logan Thomas, with just scary Terry McLaurin there. It seems as though Ricky Seals-Jones is going to be a key part of this game plan up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if this game really is a shootout kind of atmosphere where Heineke is able to go back and forth with Mr. Patrick Mahomes, then Ricky Seals-Jones has a very solid chance of finding his way into the end zone. I love Ricky Seals-Jones as a very sneaky start on the week. Next up, we got the LA Rams at the New York Football Giants. In this one, I like Tyler Higbee. I'm going to play Tyler Higbee every single week. Now, he is relatively dependent on finding his way on into the end zone, but a majority of those tight ends that aren't named like Travis Kelce or Darren Waller, the guys that aren't the immense target monsters inside of their offense, you are just really hoping for a touchdown. So that is the case with Tyler Higbee, but this is a game up against the Giants that if Daniel Jones does end up playing in, which is my assumption at this point, that I actually think that the Giants may be able to play relatively well in this game and keep it a little bit close, which will involve more passing for the LA Rams. So I like Higbee a ton this week up against the Giants defense, who are just on like a historical standpoint, just bad up against the tight end last season as well as this year. For the Giants, I will be firing up Evan Ingram, but Evan Ingram is just the most uninteresting tight end to play every single week, because it seems like he never scores, and the times that he is getting the ball, it's not like Evan Ingram is running this like 20-yard fucking route down the field. No, he's like 7 feet away from Danny Dimes, and he just feeds it to him a million times, and that's okay, right? Because you're still getting fantasy production from it, but they need to expand understand how far this man is running down the field, because it seems as though he's just there to be Daniel Jones checked down all the time. But hey, if it happens like 6, 7, 8 times in the game, then Evan Ingram could have a very solid game. So I still do like Evan Ingram this week, but again, it does kind of suck that his route tree is kind of just stuck in front of fucking Daniel Jones. So next up, we move to the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. And in this game, I don't like any of the tight ends, Mo Alley Cox or Jack Doyle, for the Indianapolis Colts. Same thing goes with Jordan Atkins, Pharaoh Brown for the Houston Texans. I just don't feel comfortable, definitely, with the Texans guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Davis Mills played all right in this game. Now, I don't expect Davis Mills to come out on fire like he did up against the New England Patriots, but I do expect him to look all right up against the Colts. I understand that the Colts defense looked very stout at the beginning of the game up against the Baltimore Ravens, but then after the beginning of the game, once it was halftime, like, the whole fucking script flipped. Now, I do think the Colts defense is one of my favorite streaming options on the week, but don't be surprised if Davis Mills throws like a touchdown or 2 in this game. But at the end of the day, what are the odds that goes to Jordan Atkins? Probably very low, right? And then for the Colts, we got Mo Alley, Mo Cox. He is probably the main tight end on this team, but we did see a little bit of Jack Doyle last week. I just don't feel very comfortable starting either of these tight ends at this point in the season, even in a smash matchup up against the Texans. Next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Detroit Lions. CJ Uzomah is definitely an interesting name because he is a guy that you could just see realistically him moseying his way up into the end zone a couple of times in any given game, just with how good this Bengals offense appears to be. But when Boyd, when T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase are all healthy, I just feel as though the odds that CJ Uzomah finds his way into the end zone is significantly lower, especially this week with Joe Mixon being fully healthy. So I just do not trust Uzomah at all, and I would not want him on my team. I think his name is CJ Uzomah is how you actually pronounce it, so I do apologize, CJ, if you're watching this video. TJ Hawkinson for the Detroit Lions. He's a start, but he's on about the last fucking straw for me, because if TJ Hawkinson has another shitty game, now I'm going to tell you to start him again next week, unless he has a bye, of course, because there are byes now in week number 6. But if he fucks up again, then I'm going to get seriously aggravated, because what the fuck is wrong with this Lions offense? Week 1, week 2, TJ Hawkinson is on top of the fucking world. TJ Hawkinson is having an excellent beginning of the season. I'm thinking, you know what? Everything I predicted was right. The Detroit Lions, they don't have a key number 1 wide receiver. They still don't. They still don't have a key number 1 wide receiver, and we're 6 weeks into the season. So TJ Hawkinson is going to be the guy. He's going to be force-fed with targets. Jared Goff's going to be throwing him the ball a lot. You want to know why? Because they're going to be throwing late on in games, because they're going to be down, because the defense is so bad. And guess what's happening? They're still throwing down in the game, but they're not giving the fucking ball to TJ Hawkinson. So my hope is that this week up against the Cincinnati Bengals, that the tides shift and it's back to TJ Hawkinson season. So I'm going to continue to roll him out. I'm going to continue to rank him very highly, because that situation there in Detroit is amazing. But the question is, will he actually be given the ball? That's up in the air. And in reality, it shouldn't be up in the air at all, because he is the clear number 1. He should be the clear number 1 target on this Lions offense. I just don't understand it at all at this point. Next up, we move to the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. And I've also had it up to here with this tight end, but it was his final straw last week. Robert Big Bub Tonyan is a sit for me. There is no way you can play Tonyan at this point. This guy is allergic to scoring touchdowns. Last year, this man was scoring touchdowns basically down the stretch of the season. I'm pretty sure in 8 games. Now, again, this is up to interpretation, because this isn't 100% fact because I'm not reading it. But I'm pretty sure in like the last 6 games, he scored 5 touchdowns, something like that. Like, towards the end of the season, this guy basically scored a touchdown every single game except for 1. Now, again, don't quote that as fucking fact, because I know that that's not exactly what happened, but you understand what I'm saying. Basically, every single game down the stretch of the season except for 1, he scored a touchdown. But this year, he just can't find the end zone. He cannot score. And even in a solid matchup, in my opinion, up against the Bears defense isn't what it was in the past. At least the last couple of years, the Bears defense has not looked as good. But at the end of the day, I still don't think you can trust Tonyan. He's just not doing what he was doing last year. And when you so heavily rely on the touchdown and you're not getting the touchdowns you got last year, then you're going to have a shitty season. And that's where we're sitting with Tonyan right now. Now, I wouldn't tell you to drop him just yet, but he's about 1 more game off of playing like shit here up against the Bears from me wanting nothing to do with Tonyan. I'm definitely not playing him this week, though. And then Cole Kmet for the Bears. The Bears' game plan is just to run the ball gently down the stream. They're just going to run the rock Damian Williams likely not going to be playing this game. It's going to be Khalil Herbert. It doesn't matter who the fuck it is. It could be Matt Nagy himself going out there to run the ball, and they would just run the ball and just basically put bubble wrap around Justin Fields and make sure that Justin Fields doesn't make any key mistakes. So they just run the ball a million times and hope the Bears defense is able to do something. Now, this would be a game where maybe they let Justin Fields cook, right? Because the Packers offense isn't going to play that bad up against the Bears. This should be a high-scoring game from the Green Bay Packers offensively, and that will lead to the Bears having to throw the ball more with Bill Lazor calling the plays. So I do think if there ever was a game for Kmet to play good, it would be this week, but it probably won't be because Kmet just does not seem to be a key piece in this offense for Bill Lazor, and he doesn't seem like a guy that Justin Fields overwhelmingly loves to target. Next up, we move to the LA Chargers at the Baltimore Ravens in what is my favorite game of the week, the game that I am so excited to watch. And in this one, we're firing up both tight ends, that being Mr. Mark Andrews as well as Jared Cook. But before we get on into the explanation of that, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because again, not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure to hit that like button down below as well. It would help me out a ton. So back on into it with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews made the Indianapolis Colts defense look like some baby back bitches. Mark Andrews went off up against the Colts defense. He bent the Colts defense over a table, didn't even bother spinning, didn't even bother using even an ounce of lube, and it was pound town for Mark Andrews. He had an excellent game. Andrews at the beginning of the season he wasn't necessarily awful, but he was kind of a snooze fest in your lineup, right? He was a guy that you played every week, and you're like, you know what, that's Mark Andrews. He's on the Ravens. I understand how the game works, right? They're going to try to run the ball, but they're also going to throw the ball sometimes, and you just got to hope Mark Andrews catches a couple balls, and he'll be fine. So he wasn't shit at the beginning of the season, but he wasn't amazing. But then over the last couple of weeks, he has really started to kind of grow his wings and start flying. Caw-caw! Mark Andrews has been flying, and this is not like a flight just like over some trees right now. This is a fucking flight. He flew. He's a bird. He flies his way towards the fucking NASA, as if that's what you call it, but the space station. I don't know, actually, isn't that in space? I don't know, but the NASA headquarters, I think that is in Florida. Maybe it's in Houston, Texans. Maybe it's in Tennessee. I think it is actually in Houston, so he flies all the way over there, and he gets in a rocket, and he's going straight to the fucking moon. This is not just a coast flight. This is not just a nice flight over the beach for a bird. No. Mark Andrews' flight path is straight to the moon. It is a direct flight out of this atmosphere into the moon. Mark Andrews is on fire. Continue to ride the heat with Mr. Mark Andrews, tight end of the Baltimore Ravens. I love this game up against the Chargers. Like I said, I believe this is going to be a high-scoring matchup for Jared Cook and the Chargers. This is kind of one of those games where I just see Jared Cook scoring, and that's why I have him listed as a start. He is a very touchdown-dependent tight end, and Mr. Donald Parham, the backup tight end, he's going to be a sit, but he's been moseying his way on into the end zone as of recently, so that is a little bit worrisome for Cook, but I still believe he's going to have a solid showing here up against the Baltimore Ravens. Next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Carolina Panthers. In this one, I like Tyler Conklin. Now, I think a lot of people are kind of projecting this game to be a bit of a snooze fest, at least in my opinion, based upon what I've seen, based upon what I have seen. And my opinion is that this is going to be a higher scoring game. Both the Vikings and the Panthers were snooze fests last week. They were not too hot, but this week, I believe it's a clash of the sleepy teams, and they're going to wake right up. They're going to have excellent games here, and I like Conklin every single week because of the upside he has on this Vikings team that I feel like is really going to wake up and play big in this game. So I like Tyler Conklin for the Panthers. Ian Thomas, Tommy, make that ass tremble, are both going to be sits for me in this game. I just do not feel as though they are ultra utilized in this offense. It really seems like the Panthers offense is just cycled two ways. It's to CMC, to Christian McCaffrey, and to DJ Moore. Basically, everyone else just doesn't do anything. They're just along for the fucking ride. So I expect that Ian Thomas, Tommy Tremble are not going to have a ultra high target share in this offense in this game. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals at the Cleveland Browns, and beep, 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 beep. Breaking news. That was not like a breaking news alert, like maybe beep, beep, beep. No, that sounds like a car backing up. So that is not kind of what we're going for here. But what I'm saying is, alert! Breaking fucking news. Zach Ertz gets traded to the Arizona Cardinals. Can't play this week. You know how sick that would have been, though, guys, if he could have played this week for the Eagles. He already scored a touchdown. Then he goes to the Cardinals, scores another touchdown. You get double points for fantasy football. I wonder how that would have worked. I personally, as the commissioner, would have allowed that because I do have Zach Ertz on my team. But with that said, now he's the Cardinals guy because Max XX Williams is out for the season. Daryl Daniels, I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. I've never heard someone say your name before, Mr. Daniels. But you'll be listed as a sit. But Zach Ertz next week seems like he's going to be a start. He might not have lost that magic yet. And the Cardinals offense is just so potent. They score all these points that I can imagine Zach Ertz having a fine rest of his season and maybe the last season of his career in Arizona. Zach Ertz has really turned it around this year. So good on Zach Ertz, who seemed like a big bust last year for a lot of people and just hasn't been all that great for the last couple of years. So David Njoku is going to be a start for me. Now, he is like really the bottom of the barrel start because I understand that this could be an Austin Hooper game, but it seems like a lot of teams in the NFL, they do running back by committee. This team, they do fucking tight end by committee. David Njoku, Austin Hooper, they have another tight end there as well who does see some targets off the top of my head. I cannot name him, but if you're a Browns fan, you probably know who I'm talking about. But David Njoku absolutely dominated last week up against the LA Chargers, and it is entirely possible that now after seeing that David Njoku sees more touches. I am worried though because it seems like Jarvis Landry is going to be back, and obviously that does hurt all the other pass catchers because of how much of a present Mr. Juice Jarvis Landry has in this offense. Next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos. In this one, Darren Waller as well as Noah Fant are going to be listed as starters for me. Darren Waller's a starter every single week. It is the same argument with TJ Hawkinson, how this guy is just the #1 target on the team. This guy is going to be good whether the team sucks, whether the team's great. Darren Waller is going to have a solid game because he's just such a key piece inside this Raiders offense, so you're going to start him every single week. Noah Fant going up against the Raiders. The Raiders defense has seemed deflated like a football in New England as of recently, so I feel as though Noah Fant is in for a pretty solid game here. And the Broncos, again, they're still down. It appears as though Jerry Jeudy is on the path to return, but not for this week, so without him, without some of the other receiving weapons there in Denver, that does continue to open the door up for Noah Fant to have a solid game week in and week out. So Fant is a very reliable tight end. I like him here up against the Raiders. Next up, we got the Dallas Cowboys at the New England Deflatriots. In this game, I'm fine starting Hunter Henry at this point basically every single week. Now, the biggest issue here is that it's not like Hunter Henry is the clear #1 tight end there because Jonnu Smith is still there. Jonnu Smith is still getting targets. Jonnu Smith is still on the field a decent amount. In most games, he's on the field more than Hunter Henry. It's just that in the majority of games, Hunter Henry is out targeting Jonnu Smith. My assumption is that Hunter Henry has a solid game again. It seems like none of the receivers on New England can score, only the tight end, so that bodes quite well for Mr. Hunter Henry. For the Cowboys, Dalton Schultz is kind of a guy you got to just throw in your lineup every single week. He is on one of the most potent offenses in the National Football League with the Dallas Cowboys, a team that really does like doing one thing and one thing only, and that's scoring fucking points, and that's great for Dalton Schultz. Obviously, Blake Jarwin is still there, and it's just bound to happen that Blake Jarwin has a big game and Schultz doesn't, but at the end of the day, we all know that Dalton Schultz is the #1 tight end in Dallas, so that does make him a starting player because any given week, this guy could find his way into the end zone 2 times. Next up, we got Sunday night football between the Seattle Seahawks at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and in this one, this is a absolute snooze fest at the tight end position. Gerald Everett as well as Eric Ebron. These are just two teams that very underutilize the tight end position. I feel, though, as if the Steelers didn't have Pat Freiermuth, or if the Steelers didn't have Eric Ebron and maybe it was just Pat Freiermuth, then one of them would actually have inherent fantasy value without Juju Smith-Schuster on the team. And if Big Ben continues to play well, but at the same time, that's not the situation. They still have 2 tight ends there. They still utilize both tight ends, which makes them a no-no for fantasy. And then Gerald Everett, like let's be honest, like he needs a touchdown. I don't know if he's going to score up against the Steelers, especially with Geno Smith as the starting quarterback. So final game here, Monday Night Football between the Buffalo Bills at the Les Titans. In this one, you're going to continue to ride the heat with Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox is on fucking fire. Dawson Knox cannot be stopped. Dawson Knox is amazing. Out of nowhere, too. This guy, the first couple of years of his career, I believe he's been in the NFL since 2019, off the top of my head. but in the other seasons, except for this year, this guy's basically just another name on the Bills. But this year, this guy's like fucking Rob Gronkowski out there. So I expect Dawson Knox to have an excellent game again because the Titans defense is bad up against the pass. Anthony Firkser, he's going to be a sit. This is going to be the toughest matchup the Titans have faced all year. Defensively, the Bills defense is amazing up against the pass. We saw them shut down Patrick Mahomes and friends in Kansas City last week, so don't expect the Titans offense, at least pass-wise, to be super potent in this game. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you do hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button as well. I love each and every single one of you guys. I'll see you guys later with another video. As always, guys, goodbye.